He's our facilities guy. Very nice. We're all there. And one of the ones that was most interesting was the splash pad down in.
Nobody will ever know. We're not the city. We're a temporary lake.
Bill, you ready to go?
We're definitely not prepared for anything like that.
I think I heard it good.
I think I heard it good.
All right.
We'll kind of let John.
All right.
Well, they're going up on 6:33. I'm ready.
You ready? All right. With that, I would like to call this meeting to order, and we'll start with Pledge of Allegiance, please. Thank you. John, roll call, please.
All right. Commissioner Kibble.
I am here.
Commissioner Ettinger.
Here.
Commissioner Jetter.
Here.
Commissioner Provo.
Here.
Commissioner Sahaki.
Here.
Commissioner Callahan is not here at the moment. Commissioner McAllister.
Here.
There you are. And let's see, Commissioner Spitz.
Here.
Commissioner Underwood.
Here.
All counted for.
Yeah.
We have a quorum.
We got a quorum. General meeting policies. We'll move on down to first public comment.
Yes.
John, would you like to read those rules?
I would be happy to. Let me go to the microphone, so I'm actually reading those into the microphone too. Any person shall be permitted to address the Parks and Recreation Commission, which is required to be open to the public under the provision of the Open Meetings Act as amended, MCLA 15.261. Public comment shall be carried out in accordance with the following board rules and procedures. Number 1, any person wishing to address the commission may state his or her name. No person shall be allowed to speak more than once on the same matter, excluding commissioners' questions. The president shall control the amount of time each person shall be allowed to speak, which shall not exceed 3 minutes. The president may, at his or her discretion, extend the amount of time any person is allowed to speak. No member of the commissioner staff shall respond to public comment. All commenters must refrain from personal or political attacks on any member of the public, staff, or board. No profanity, harassment, or bullying will be tolerated and will provide just cause to be removed from the meeting.
All right, with that, would anybody like to make public comment? Not seeing anybody. We do have a public comment at the end of our session, so you'll be free to, again, to make comments at that point. Guess we'll move on to approval or any additions to the agenda. Motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Support.
Motion by Grace, support by Andy. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, passes unanimously. John, we're going to skip right over special orders of business
Yes, we are.
and go to the consent calendar.
All right. The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items to be dealt with by one commission motion without discussion. Any member of the commission, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed therefrom and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such request will automatically be respected. If any item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted, receive and file or approval, is approved by a single commission action adopting the consent calendar. Item number 1 under receive and file, Grand Traverse Conservation District reports for the monthly detail report for January 2025 and their February activity report for February 2025. Number 2, Easling Pool Grand Traverse Bay YMCA membership report for February 25. And item number 3 under approvals, minutes of the regular meeting of the Grand Traverse County Parks and Recreation Commission on February 13, 2025.
Okay. Hi, Jamie. With that said, anybody have like anything removed or from the consent calendar? Then your motion to approve it?
I'll make a motion that we receive, file, and approve the consent calendar as presented.
Second.
Okay, motion by Jalen, second by John. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Pass, receive, and consent calendar is passed as done. Reports. John?
All right. A couple of reports. First, our budget report. So a couple of items that you'll notice on the budget report. We've had good concession volume, so it's been great having Hangry's back there for the year. And we have $2,720 in concession receipts for the month of February. So it's a good solid month for Hangry's, and ultimately a good solid month for us as well. They'll continue to be around now that ICE is gone. So ICE has left the arena as of Saturday or Sunday. They finished moving everything out. So we no longer have ICE in the arena, but we now have boats. We have an arena completely full of boats. They filled it today, and the boat show will start tomorrow. So they'll be back for all of our shows that we're going to hold throughout the season. So good to see them back for that. You'll also see a large item in revenues that is $154,000 general fund allocation for operations. So we receive it a few times a year. And then you'll see $5,400 in rent, and that is for the Keystone Soccer Complex. Under expenditures, one large item that you'll see in contract services, that's $45,000 for the YMCA for pool operation. And then just a side note, something you'll see coming up, in March we purchased a UTV, and that was in our budget under our capital expenditures, and we'll be putting that UTV at Civic Center, and then we're moving another UTV to the Greilich property that we can use for service vehicle there.
Any questions for John on the budget? John, it's not really part of the budget, but just kind of the list of the shows coming up. I know we go into show season at the Civic Center. You got boat show.
So boat show is this weekend. I'm going to try and do this from memory, so I might need some help here. So the Marvac show is next weekend. So that is the RV show. They will take a break for spring break, as having a show during the spring break week just doesn't work very well. And they will come back, I believe it is April 4th, 5th, 6th for the Up North Lake and Cottage show. And then we'll have a break or two in there, a break a week or two, and we move into the Maker Fest, which is April 26th. And the next item on my agenda, April 30th, will be the Paddling Film Festival World Tour. So we're going to host that again for the second year. So come one, come all, have a great time. And we're heavy into the planning process for that. In May, we will have, you're pulling the list, good. In May, we'll have the Career Fest. So my career fair will be there again. And then in April, Roller Derby comes back, and they'll start with not only bouts, but they're also going to have their ever popular open skates again as well.
Okay.
One other addition for April, which is the new Big Boy Toy Show, which
Yes.
is April 11th to 13th. So that's power sports and
Yeah. So if you're looking to get side-by-sides, ATVs,
Toys.
foil boards, all kinds of
That's a new one,
fun
right?
toys. That's a brand new show, yes. Blue Water Promotions is pioneering that one for the first time, so excited to see how that one turns out. It's got a full complement of folks coming in.
And all the boats out along the fence that are not in the arena, are they going inside, or are
No.
some staying out there?
So we have boats along
crazy. I drove
Front
by.
Street. I believe 13 boats along Front Street. And then we do charge for each of those in addition to the arena. And then we've got 3 boats, or two or three boats that are in front of the arena. So we charge for those as well.
Any questions for John? Sorry, I had to bring it up after driving by on my way here, so. There's all these boats along, and I mean, they're not the little ones. There's some
No.
big boats out along that fence, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or where the fence used to be.
Well, yes, sorry.
Along the property line.
Along the
at
property.
the front of the property.
All right.
I mentioned the Paddling Film Festival World Tour, so we will start tickets. Actually, ticket sales are available now, so they're available on our website. And then we're putting the plans together here, and we will also be doing ticket sales through a number of outlets in the area. So as we finalize those, we'll get those out to you as well. Big item that's happening right now, it just started, is the walking track project. So I want to give everybody an update on where we are with the walking track. So this past week, we started selective tree removal on property. And when I say selective, it's just there are certain trees that were budding right up against the track and already causing the previous track to heave, and no sense in putting $1 million track in to have that track heave right away as well. So we pulled a few trees. There were a few trees that were also hazard trees along the way, and so we needed to move those. And then we had a couple of trees right in front of the Norte headquarters building. So the kind of job site trailer, classroom trailer deal, that butts up next to the facilities building, if you're familiar with the property. We had 2 trees that were leaning heavily over that. So we took those out at the same time since we had a crew on property. It's a good thing we took that out because one of those trees is about 4 feet in diameter and 2 feet in the middle was not there. So it was just a hollow tree, and it would have taken itself down sooner rather than later, I'm thinking. So it's a good thing we took it down before it came down and caused a problem. So the next stage in the process, now that those trees have come out, is bridge removal. So we will be removing the bridge from its home and cutting that up and hauling that away. And this will be the week of, bless you, the week of spring break. We strategically chose that week because the school, Oak Park School, that is just off West Civic Center Drive, they will not be running buses that week, so we won't cause any interruption with the buses. So that process will require closing of the road at least 1 day, possibly 2. So they're going to lift that bridge off, hopefully set that off to the side, and then be able to cut from the side, but it just depends on how fast that process can go. So after the bridge is removed, they're going to start the process of getting the abutments and the wing walls and all that stuff all set up and ready. So it'll take a while for that to happen. So we will have no bridge in place until about the 2nd week of June. And we're expecting the new bridge to arrive sometime in May. And we'll store that somewhere on property, hopefully not in the parking spaces. We have a spot that we'd like to be able to store that to keep parking spaces available on property. But we didn't want to push that bridge off and say, well, we don't need delivery until such and such date. If they're ready to deliver it, I want it on site because I don't want to mess with having a late delivery on this. So after they install the bridge, which will likely be June 11th, right around there, weather permitting, they have to pour some concrete right at the ends where it meets the abutments, and then they have to pour the concrete deck. So the concrete deck does not come with a concrete deck. So they'll pour that. While that work in between is happening, so from March 24th to June 11th, we'll be working on the track specifically. So the first thing that'll happen on the track is we will work on the 3-foot wide perimeter soft path, so the kind of chips and fines path. And we're going to do that first because they can drive the equipment on the existing asphalt path. And I don't care what happens to the asphalt path at that time. So they'll drive the equipment on that, put that new path in, then once that's done, they'll pulverize the existing pathway and then prepare that surface and then relay the new track, or new course of asphalt over that. So there will be a time in there after they pulverize, and between the time they pulverize and the time they lay the new track, approximately 2 weeks is what we're expecting at this time, where the track itself, the complete track, will be unavailable during that period of time. So we do have signs out now saying, pardon our progress, kind of here's what's going on. And Kara put together a fantastic web page with a QR code on that page. So folks, when they see the signs, wherever we've got them posted, and they can just scan that QR code, it'll take them to real-time updates on what's happening with the progress in the park. So thank you for putting that together, and a great resource. Following all that, we expect substantial completion by June 27th, and then full completion by July 25th. What will happen after the track and possibly after the substantial completion, just depends, is we'll pave the parking lot, or grade and pave the parking lot that serves the amphitheater and the pavilion. That's one of the last pieces in the process because we're going to use that space as a laydown yard for all the equipment. It's already dirt, it's already a mess. We're just going to make it a little bit more of a mess while we're getting that ready. And then absolute last part of the process is we'll be adding the 7 fitness stations around the perimeter of the track. So that's kind of in a nutshell the project.
Questions?
You know, there have been some interesting reports from the media, perhaps, on the bridge. Just to confirm, perhaps all we know already, that bridge wouldn't be suitable for use over at the state park, nor for use literally anywhere. Is that correct?
It would not. We're gonna cut that into pieces.
Yes.
So
Perfect. And that grant is all grant funded as well, for the most part.
it is majority. Well, yeah, I guess it is all grant funded. So $998,800 Spark grant, and then we also received a couple of grants from the Traverse City Track Club and a grant from the Grand Traverse Band of Ottawa and Chippewa Indians. So thanks to all of those groups for their support.
And is that ADA path marked during construction as well while that bridge is out?
Yeah, we will, we've got an ADA alternate that goes between the Civic Center and facilities shops, or facilities building, and that runs to connect with the sidewalk, and then that will take you to the south end of the park. So that will be our preferred alternate to get people, continue a loop through the property.
Thanks, John.
You're welcome. Other questions? All right, end of my formal report.
Awesome. We'll move on. The Strategic Planning Committee, Jamie, I think
Yep.
you chaired that meeting?
Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Rod. Yeah, we met on, just 2 days ago Tuesday at the Nature Center. So we had a little mini field trip over the Nature Center for our meeting. So thanks to our friends out there. We had a nice update from John on the Raptor Center and some of the progress that's been going on out there and some meetings that they've had with John, finally being able to slowly be able to get more access, and I think this week will make it a lot easier on the snow levels
Yes.
to be able to get around.
Yeah, just a week ago, we were post-holing through thigh-deep snow still in the woods, so.
Yeah, that
Good
snow
times.
does like to stick around out there. So we got an update in regards to that and some progress, and the architects are taking some look at some stuff and options in regards to the building, the outpost slash former trading post slash quartermaster building. And then discussion also at the meeting from the incubator farm. And we, a while back, had the strategic planning had them in on some things that they want to do out there. They gave us some updates having to do with the roadside fruit stand that they want to do, which was kind of really the main one that we discussed at that point. There were still some additional questions that the committee had, and they're going to go and dig up some more answers for us and follow back with us on those, just in regards to some of the regulatory things and the whether it's parking or MDARD regulations on fruit stands and roadside stands and some things like that, and then a number of discussions in regards to just parking in and out, ingress egress onto a busy Keystone Road and left turns and some of that sort of stuff. And then a brief update in regards to the T-Bays contract, which is later on the agenda. And I think that was all of it.
All right. Next up, Rules Committee, Jalen.
Rules Committee has not met since our last meeting. However, we'll be meeting on the 25th of this month at 5:30 here in the Government Center in Committee Meeting Room 2, which is just down the hallway next to us here.
Real quickly, I may have actually found a park that's an island.
Those
Oh,
are
good.
few and
County
far
park.
between.
What's that?
County park.
Great.
I have to dig it out, but snow's in around, and I think may have found.
For everybody's reference, we were trying to find a comparison
Yeah,
to
sorry
another
about
county that has a park that is an island.
Not common.
What's that?
Not common.
Not common, yes.
Most of them have a bridge that connects it to the.
Yeah, our bridges would be a little long. Natural Education Reserve Advisory Committee, Joe.
I don't believe, I'm looking here on my schedule, I don't believe we had a meeting since the last meeting
No,
here, so
April.
there's no update on that.
Okay, thank you. Jalen, for T-Bays representative, I know we're going to talk more about some of the stuff there, but.
Yeah, absolutely.
maybe
We'll
give us
see.
an update.
We'll see the Adult Soccer League contract here later on this evening, which they're certainly hopeful for. Also, of course, spring is finally here, as we see, and T-Bays is getting ready, of course, to proceed with their season. With that does, of course, come their new field maintenance schedule. They're starting to flesh that out so that way they can continue to have top playing surfaces in the area there. And we'll see, I think, more and more improvements with the playing surface as this year goes on while they continue to see what that looks like. So that's very exciting. Also then, of course, this time of year brings early discussion of the tournament. Now, last year did have about 270 tournament teams visiting. And let's all just take one moment to take a deep breath before listening to the number this year and, breathe in, breathe out. It's 320 teams this year. Now, 320 teams does sound like significantly more, and that's because that is correct. It's 50 more teams than last year. That being said, they are aware that parking, of course, is already nearly at maximum capacity for the Keystone Soccer Complex when we were at 270. So they're looking at how to spread out those teams. There will be more teams playing on the Friday before that tournament weekend, and there will be more teams playing on Sunday as well. So previously Saturday used to be the extreme, really busy day. While still will be very busy, they do not expect to be able to squeeze all 320 teams into that place at the same time. So that was something that Kara attended that meeting as well most recently here, and something we, of course, shared our concerns about. They have, I believe, reassured us that they are planning appropriately to make sure that that's the case. We have also urged them to have further conversations, as I'm certain they will, with Captain Brinks from the county regarding traffic flow and support from the county. And they're also looking at hiring off-duty police officers, for lack of a better word that comes to mind right now, to help with traffic flow for their event at that time as well. So they have heard our concerns about that. They will be adding signage to Bermley Road this year as well for no parking. And we can only continue to encourage them to take that very seriously as they do. Those are all the updates I have from TVAs at this time, other than what we'll see this evening here.
Okay. Any questions for Jalen? Road Commission Representative Joe?
Okay, so on the road commission, probably the biggest thing to tell you is the day after school's out, we plan on shutting down 3 Mile between South Airport and Hammond. So that'll affect traffic flow on that side of the town. We are going to do some an overlay on Town Line, so that'll be one of the options to take is Town Line Road. Hopefully everything works out the way it's supposed to. Project will take until it's done. So that's quite a big rebuild through there. Other than that, we've let out some safety grants, one in Paradise Township, one on the west side of town, where we're making the roads a little safer with little grades. We are letting our bids out, so construction will begin. We have another meeting coming up, so we'll do some more bids. So as we get into those bidding processes, we'll be able to bring out more and more of the different projects that we're doing. I am going to make note of our meeting today.
Yeah.
Breitner Bridge, well, Breitner tubes are going to be replaced with a bridge next year. And we had our second or third kind of meeting over how to change that whole area that is all on road commission land. And it appears that we might have a viable thing, so we're going to move ahead and try to get some sketches and some cost estimates to see what we can do. It's a dance because it's city land, road commission land, county parks and rec, all trying to figure out how to, and the trail folks all trying to figure out how to do this. So hopefully we can get it all done in one swoop while we're doing the bridge. So
Be great.
that's kind of my quick. As we get more information, another one obviously we'll bring it for you. So
Good to hear, Joe. Thank you. Thanks for representing us there and getting that done. On to Drain Commission. Andy?
Well, it's
Any updates?
grateful that we had a normal spring melt this year, and not a 2-inch storm on top of 12 inches of snow. So there's no flooding to report, thank goodness. But the State Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy sent a letter out to about 12 different governmental entities last week, including the county, Drain Commissioner, Road Commission, Leelanau County Road Commission, Leelanau County Drain Commissioner, TCAPS, ISD, NMC, the City of Traverse City. They're all required to submit a permit application for a federal stormwater permit within 180 days. So it's a very large lift for those communities, and I'm working to try and gather a consensus approach, because there would be about 12 entities repeating each other's work, conceivably for about 50% of the program requirements. Every different entity will have to do an asset inventory and eliminate illicit discharges and do other things, but the permit application process can be streamlined, and some of the notified entities can be nested. So they won't have to apply. They could be, by agreement, they could be co-permittees with a larger entity. So that's moving forward. Eagle is going to be up here in late April to give training on how to fill out their multi-page permit application. So it's huge. It's will require annual budget appropriations for all the notified parties for compliance and annual reporting and monitoring in the future. So it's a result of our county growing, our region growing, much like the the regional planning, the MPO. We fall into that threshold now in the region of having a population density where federal programs come to bear on us. And one of them is federal stormwater permitting for the protection of water quality. It's going to be a busy year.
Any questions for Andy? With that said,
So we're, just one thing to note, so we're meeting with Andy on April 3rd, along with a few other folks, to kind of discuss that, and there's going to be some impacts on our parks, and just making sure that we're meeting stormwater guidelines for our parks as well. So it
MS4 permit.
MS4, yeah. So it covers all across the county.
County Board Representative Brian,
Hi.
welcome.
We don't have a whole lot. I know the Parks and Recs are asking for a little bit of money to resurface a trailhead and stuff like that. I think 175, or I don't recall all the numbers and stuff
Yep, you
like
got it.
that. And we just got, I personally just got the information, so I haven't really had a chance to dive into it. So I don't really have anything to report on that other than we're going to look at it and see if we can't do some good for the world.
Awesome.
So to give out y'all a little bit background on that, so we are planning to apply for a Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund grant for the Vasa Trailhead project. Last year, we applied for a recreation passport grant for $150,000. We did not receive that one, but we do think that there's a number of ways that we can score better on a Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund grant, and the funding opportunity is larger. We did receive a Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund grant last year for the Boardman Ottaway Crossing Bridge that we had applied for both at the same time. One of the things that we can do to significantly increase our odds is to increase the match. So you do have to have a 25% match for this, and so we're looking to increase that to a 50% match. Now, when I say 50%, it's 50% of the entire project. So entire project is $800,000, and conveniently, their max grant is $400,000, so that we put a 50% match at $400,000 as well. So TART has money to pitch in. We've got money from that was budgeted this year in our capital budget for paving at Vasa. We can't do that until we have the base layer done. So what we're asking to do is to take TART's contribution, the amount that we have budgeted in our capital fund for this year, and then add an additional $175,000 to next year's capital budget, and that would round us out for a $400,000 match for that property. So pretty good deal. You know, I give you 300, you turn it into 800. That's a decent trade.
That's what I meant to say.
All right. I think that wraps up our reports. So we'll move on down. Old business, we have none tonight. New business. And the first thing on that is the Gray Lake Property Draft Business Plan Review. I think this is something that's been talked about a lot, especially with strategic planning and through for a number of months.
I feel like we've seen
6
this
months, probably.
several times.
Yeah, we have. But with that, I'm going to let John give us a review of this plan.
Thank you. So this is the plan that we had been working on through the Strategic Planning Committee now for several months, and have had the opportunity to, back in November, put this plan out for public comment, and had it out there for about 5 weeks for a public comment period, and that came down in the middle of December, I want to say December 19th, something like that. We took the great feedback that we received from that public comment process, as well as the feedback that we received in the prior public comment, or the public session meetings that we held, both at the Regional Land Conservancy and at the Camp Gray Lake property. So we received great feedback from that all around. and then combined all that together into the packet that you have, or the item that you have before you. So that is the Greilich business plan that I've got a copy of here, and you've got a copy of in your packet. So I wanted to go through just a couple of the salient points in that plan. So first, I wanted to make sure that we're clear that what this plan is intended to cover and what it is not intended to cover. So the plan is intended to be a document that will guide us on how we are going to use the park, what amenities we are going to allow people to take advantage of, and essentially how those amenities will be used, and then the phasing for that. This document is not intended to be the rules document. So once we have finally landed on these are the things that we think we're going to be able to do on the property, and that we work with East Bay Township to submit our site plan review, which we had conversations with them, and these things fit within that site plan review process. Then we will have our rules committee and work together to make sure, and we've already started doing that to some degree, but our rules committee will ultimately be responsible for taking a look at all of those things and determining, are the rules that we have in place for our parks now, do they adequately govern those, or is there something special that we need to put in place to adequately govern the items that are going on at Greilich? So that's one. The second is management practices. There are some management practices that we'll need to put in place. So just as an example, right now when we rent a pavilion to someone, there's a document that they sign. It's kind of in addition to the rules that say, here's the behavior that we expect of you as you're renting the pavilion. Here's the things that you can and cannot do. We'll have those kinds of things in place as management practices. So as we're renting, we're making sure that we're being good neighbors and that that folks are respecting the property appropriately. So that's kind of the difference between this. This isn't intended to tell us what amenities and how are we going to use those amenities. So with that in mind, we wrote this with the intention of taking a look at three areas. First is, what's our vision? All right, so what do we really want to make sure that we're focusing on for the property? The second, what are our guiding principles? And those guiding principles, they stay the same as the guiding principles that we developed for our 2024-2028 5-year recreation plan. And we look back at those principles and say, is what we're doing getting us closer to or further from these guiding principles and from that vision? If it's getting us further from that, then we stop doing that. So we need to make sure we're always driving toward that. And then the third piece that this was built for was, we know the vision, we know the guiding principles, here's the plan. All right, and then there'll be more action pieces of it that come out later, but I won't read each of the individual words in here. I'll let you read that, but essentially our vision is saying that we want to make sure that we're preserving the park and protecting the park for use by the public. So there's more words in there, but y'all can read. I don't want to read each individual word for you. So with that in mind, our guiding principles follow the four things that you see listed here. So first, delivering that comprehensive park and recreation system throughout the entire county. So again, that's not specific to Greilich. That's looking at us in general and saying, are we delivering that comprehensive park and recreation system throughout the entire county? One of the things going back to our 2024-2028 plan that people told us is that they wanted to see a larger presence outside of the Traverse City area. And so this opportunity came up to add this property to the portfolio. So this is a great way to be able to reach into the south end of the county and then be able to extend that brand. So that's the first one. And these are not necessarily in order. So one is not more important than another. They are all equally as important. The second, protect and preserve park resources. So that's the mission, right? So that's what we want to make sure that we're protecting and preserving that land for the use by the public. Develop and value the relationships and contributions of park users, staff, and partners. We've got a lot of great partners. We've got a lot of great folks within the county that have great ideas. We can put all that thought process together and deliver on the initial, if I go back to the G word, right? The former iteration of the property, the outdoor recreation and education center was, the ideal thing for that property. We've got relationships, we've got staff that can execute on those things. And then increasing operational efficiency and financial sustainability. Ultimately, we have to find a way to make sure that we can generate some appropriate revenue from the park property to make sure that we have a way to be able to sustain that. And we've got a few different ways to be able to do that. So In terms of those four things, the first piece, delivering that comprehensive park and recreation system to the county. So we're going to make use of the existing amenities. And what I mean by that is that we've got a lot of great amenities that are on property already. There's no need to really add a lot of amenities to property. We're not looking at building a lot on property. In fact, I was telling Aaron from the Conservancy here earlier that we're going to take down more than we're going to put up. That is our plan. Serve a broad user base. We've got 97,421, I believe, people as of the last count in Grand Traverse County, plus visitors and plus other surrounding counties. We've got a lot of folks with a lot of needs and a lot of interests to serve. So this property has a broad range of amenities that can serve that broad base. The third, promote engagement and connection. When I say that engagement and connection, that's an opportunity to connect people with nature, connect people with the property, and most importantly, connect people with each other. Parks serve the social, emotional, cognitive, and physical development needs of humans. We can serve all of those things through programming and through the parks themselves. So this is another way that we can extend that opportunity. And then the fourth is to educate. And we're educate through our partners, through our programming. We've got a partner here, Jeffrey. We talked about, what's that? Perspective. There we go. All right, Perspective partner in Jeffrey and Caitlin at North Sky Raptor Sanctuary. As we mentioned earlier, we've had great conversations with them so far. We're progressing down that road to see if we've got opportunities that fit the property and fit the region and fit North Sky. So that's the kind of that piece of it. So protect and preserve park resources. So one that we heard loud and clear, right? Was aquatic invasive species protection. That's one that we're taking very seriously, and we've already put the step in place through this particular entity, through this board, to basically decide that we are not going to allow private watercraft to be launched on any of the three lakes in which that property faces. So, then that's one of the things that we'll need to adjust within our rules, because we'll add that in there that you can't launch it from those three properties. That's one that we've discussed through that process already. So that's one. One that we're looking at is strengthening the conservation easement. So we've talked about this for a while. There's a couple things that we'd like to do with that conservation easement potentially. One is there's a riparian buffer, 100 feet around all the water. We want to extend that to 200 feet. All right. The second is we've got about 85,000 roughly square feet of developed structures on the property. That includes actual above ground structures, and includes anything that's attached to the ground. So wooden structures, asphalt, any of that is considered a developed structure. Roughly 85,000 square feet now. The current conservation easement gives us the ability to double that, so to go to, again, roughly 170,000. I think it's probably closer to 174. I think we said 87, but we'll just use round numbers for the purposes of this. So we could double that to 170,000 feet. What we're talking about and what we've got listed in the plan here, and should it all get approved by all the necessary bodies, is that we would like to reduce that to a total of 130,000 square feet. Again, just to give you a scale of reference, that gives us, theoretically, so don't get alarmed with this, but that gives us the opportunity to basically, we could keep everything that's on property now, and we could build another building with the same square footage of the building that we're in now, and probably have some room left over. We're not going to do that, but just to give you a scale of the amount of square footage that would still be available, that's kind of what we're looking at. The third is third in this list is sustainable trail design. So we've formed a work group that is comprised of, and I hope I don't miss anybody here, but representatives from the Brown Bridge Quiet Area Advisory Committee, from North Country Trail Association, Northern Michigan Mountain Bike Association, Aloft Disc Golf, Grand Traverse Conservation District. We should probably have someone from the Conservancy representing the easement as well. So we'll talk about that. But we've put this group together, and the idea is that we wanted to get all the different user constituencies who use the trails together and say, y'all need to play nice in the sandbox. So we've got a great trail network that's here already. It extends from the north end of the property into the south end of the property. We want to make sure that whatever we create or whatever we use is a cohesive network, and that it serves different user bases, that we aren't creating conflicts. So just to use an example, we don't want to have disc golf and a mountain bike trail cross each other at an odd angle so someone gets hit in the head with a disc, or that a disc golfer gets hit with a bicycle. All right? So we want to make sure that we're creating a positive experience for everybody. So we've already had a couple meetings with the Brown Bridge Advisory Committee, because since those two properties adjoin one another, it's not really any fun to have a trail that just terminates at the end of that property and then you have to loop back. So we want to figure out how do we make that network work, and then how do we make sure that we develop those trails in a sustainable manner so we're not creating washouts, we're not creating erosion, that we're not routing people by sensitive areas. So that's an important thing to us as well. The stewardship development, we're doing that a number of different ways. So one of those ways is through volunteer opportunities. Kara is working on a volunteer program right now that will create an opportunity to engage the local community to be able to really continue to support the property. And then the last one on that list is caretaker. Our intention is to have a caretaker on property in the Ranger House. And that person would be supporting us on property by being the eyes and the ears on the property, as well as providing some maintenance support for the property. The third in those guiding principles is develop and value the relationships and contributions of park users, staff, and partners. So I'd mentioned volunteer involvement already. That's an important piece. The second being educational programming. Oh, sorry about the extra M on there. I think I have ing after that. Educational programming. Again, going back to the Greilich Outdoor Recreation and Education Center. That education, first, it takes advantage, again, of the resources in the community. We've got people with great knowledge, and it's everything from waterfowl to water quality to first aid to paddling skills. It's all in between all that. So we want to make sure that we take an opportunity to bring those things to the property. We actually talked to a gentleman today that in the early days of the GoRec property, I know I said it, in the early days of that property, or the early days of that concept, he actually ran a chainsaw safety program. It's one that I hadn't even thought about, but how many people have a chainsaw at their house and are probably running around in flip-flops and shorts without chaps or any other protection using their chainsaw that could really benefit from some chainsaw safety? So there's another possibility. You just have to bring something in to cut, because we aren't cutting there, right? I suppose you can cut downfall that's already on the ground, but you kind of get the idea. So, there's so many opportunities for that outdoor recreation and education that we haven't even thought of, that being one of them. What else is out there? And then another piece, camp programming. We know that there is a lack of camp opportunities in our region. There's a lack of camp opportunities in the south. I don't know if there's any. I mean, I don't know if they run anything in Kingsley, as an example. So we've got an opportunity to be able to bring camp programming in. We don't really run programming. We aren't staffed. We aren't set up for that. But again, there's a lot of partners in the area who say, if I had a space to do it, if I had a way to be able to house people, then I could extend my camp. Well, we've got cabins there. So we've got an opportunity to say, if you're bringing a camp here, maybe we have an opportunity to use those cabins to help house staff for the camp. And then they can provide that amenity for the community. So, and then off those camp hours, they can help provide some maintenance and support for the property as well. So again, we're thinking of trying to think all through these things and see how we can add them. The next one, increasing operational efficiency and financial sustainability. So partnerships do just that. So if we work with partners to create camp programming and educational programming and such, we don't have to staff up for that and have somebody just kind of waiting in the wings and on staff. We can use a contracted partner that, again, takes advantage of the collective resources of the community. It allows the experts in the community to be able to come in, to be able to be paid for their work appropriately. So that's one of the ways that we can generate revenue and increase efficiency. The second is other appropriate revenue generation, so looking at things like rentals of parts of the property. So renting the pavilions, for example, renting the cabins, renting the lodge for appropriate activities. So those are things that we've talked about already and will continue to build into the plan. Of course, county funding, we know that, actually, let me go around the horn here, so I'll use the endowment first. I'll just touch on that one. There is an endowment in place, as you know, so that is the Forever Greilich Fund. That fund is continuing to grow. It came with about $150,000. The county then kicked in an extra $250,000. to bring it to 400, and then on top of that, the county said for every $2 that is contributed, up to $250,000, we will match another dollar for that. So there's additional funding that is coming in and building that endowment. Our plan is to be able to get that endowment to $1.5 million. By getting that endowment to $1.5 million, that spins off $60,000 a year, and we can use that to offset the expenses of running the park. So, you know, maintenance on trails, maintenance on the grounds, maintenance on the buildings, waste collection, all those sorts of things, it all costs, lights, I mean, it all costs money to be able to run that stuff. And then the fourth is county funding. So our intention is to be able to look at those three and then have the county funding, so the general fund to be able to make up the difference between those four. So, in terms of phasing, so we're looking at 5 different phases altogether. So the items you see here, phase 1, so trail access, disc golf access, shelter rental, swimming beach access, fishing, and kayak and paddleboard rental. So those are the things that we're looking for in phase 1. Now that's a lot of stuff. It's a pretty aggressive list. Notice we don't have a specific date on there. So our intention is to be able to open the property to the public this year, but we won't have all of phase 1 completed at the time that we open the property. We need to make sure that the property is safe for the public first, that there's no hazards on the property, that we can mitigate all the hazards that we can manage, and then be able to get the property open to the public, and then be able to maintain it. Trail access is the easiest one for that. We've actually applied for a trail crew from AmeriCorps to be able to join us. We should find out by next Wednesday if we'll be receiving that trail crew, and if we do, they'll be joining us for 6 weeks on property, basically supporting the entire property, helping to get those trails in place. That can advance that timeline to be able to get us open earlier in 25 rather than later in 25. Disc golf course access is another one. They would also be working on that. There's work that we need to do to the disc golf tee pads, and then just general cleanup of the course itself. And there's a couple of holes that are just not really good golf shots. They're not a good experience for the users, and a good experience for other users in the area as well. So we're going to realign some of those things. Shelter rental. We got a great pavilion there. If that pavilion were to be available for folks to be able to come and have a birthday party or something of that type, it's a great space to be able to do that and enjoy the property as a whole. And as I mentioned, swimming, beach access, fishing, and then the kayak and paddleboard rental, which we intend to do that through the kiosk that we would have on property, and those boats would only stay on, or boats and boards would just stay on property. So now there could be some flux with this, so we may see something that happens that we see an opportunity in phase 2 and think, okay, can we advance something in phase 2 as a trial? And I'll mention something in there that we're kind of toying with right now. But phase 2 is full service cabin rental, so those cabins that are ringing the parking lot, being able to rent those. There are semi-rustic cabins, so those are kind of in the middle of the property near the amphitheater. They're just 2-person, about the size of a toll booth. And so the idea is that if you want kind of a camping experience, but you don't want to sleep on the ground, that can be an opportunity. And those are served by a shower house right there. Educational programming, camp programming, and Besser Lodge rental, we see those generally fitting into that phase 2. One departure potentially from that is we are talking with Heart of the Lakes. So if you're not familiar with Heart of the Lakes is kind of like a Michigan Recreation and Park Association, but for conservation districts. So they help support conservation districts. And they host an event, and it's called the Michigan Outdoor Summit. And they hosted that at Hickory Hills last year, so 2024. They've held it at the Aloft Hotel for the couple years prior. It's basically an industry event. Folks come in the morning, maybe they do yoga or take a walk, something like that, just kind of get their minds right. And then they have general sessions and breakout sessions. And it is a low-key event. It's just industry professionals in Michigan coming together to share ideas on conservation and recreation. So like I said, I think the last one was a general session speaker from Colorado, and he was just basically talking about his experiences as a ski guide and as a conservationist. And then they broke out from there and did 5 or 6 different breakout sessions at a time, and again, conservation and recreation topics of those. And then at the end of the day, there might be some other light activity on property, and then they go off their own way. There was actually last year, I think they did some things on property and some things off property. They did a tour with the conservation district on the Boardman River and a couple of those kinds of things. So phase 3, and I should mention one other thing about these phases. So these phases are set up basically in order of complexity and in order of the amount of infrastructure that we have to put in place. We don't have to put as much infrastructure in place for trails. The trails are essentially there. We need to do some rerouting and cleaning up and bench cutting and fixing trails, but we don't have to put a lot in place. For opening phase 1, we can put porta potties in place and be able to manage that. We don't have to put big improvements to buildings and that sort of thing. As we get into phase 2, things like Besser Lodge, we need to upgrade the restrooms to make sure they're accessible, and a few other things there. As we get into phase 3, things like the amphitheater, so we need to clear out the amphitheater area. We need to kind of fix some of the benches and do some of that sort of stuff. Chapel rental, teams course access, climbing tower and zip line tower access, and then hunting being something that kind of falls into that area. So the amphitheater and the chapel rental, that's simply renting those spaces for folks to be able to use. So church service, for example, or amphitheater and North Sky Raptor Sanctuary, for example, hosting a student program there and having, you had, what was her name, Raza? All right, so having birds like Raza, all right, so being able to entertain and educate at the same time. And that particular spot is ideal for something like that. Supervised teams course access and supervised climbing tower and zip line access. The supervised being the important piece. So we're not just going to let people loose on that. We're going to make sure that when they use those kinds of things, they're doing it under supervision, so we're following safety protocols. Hunting is one that we've also talked about, and that's something that we would take a look at, and we'd look at that on a measured basis. So I'll use Hickory Forest, right? Hickory Forest as an example. So this year they began offering hunting in Hickory Forest. They did it along the same model that is used at Brown Bridge Quiet Area. So it is a permit-only basis. They limit the number of permits, and what we would look at is we would look at starting with bow hunting. May not go further than that. It may go further than that. We just aren't sure yet. But we would start limited number of permits, limited area, bow hunting, and then kind of progress from there. If it all works together. That's where that whole trail process comes in, right? So we need to make sure that whatever trail process or trail system that we're designing, that meshes well with that activity as well. So, from there, we get into phase 4 and phase 5. Awful lot of white space in there. Sorry, I was going to put a picture in there, but I didn't. Phase 4, so supervised, again, archery, rifle, and shotgun range access on a permit-only basis. So this is not the DNR range on Supply Road, where anybody and everybody with a license can go and target practice. This is supervised. So give you an example with something like this. We've had conversations with MSU Extension. And MSU Extension has a staff member who runs all of the shooting sports education programs, both youth and adult, for 4-H. And so this would be an ideal space for youth firearm safety, for competitive archery programs, for adult firearm safety programs. But we do that on a very limited basis. Give you a scale, the Scouts, what they told me was that they shot off 50,000 rounds a year. We would be nothing near that. It would be a scattering of days based on whatever programming that we would be able to run for something like that. And then the last phase, and the one that quite frankly requires the most infrastructure, is rustic camping. Not only the most physical infrastructure for that, just as an example, we've got 11 different developed group camp areas right now. That can change with, if North Sky comes in, then we would take some of that out of play and be able to use that for interpretive trails. But call it 9, let's say, that are remaining. Each of those right now is served by a small privy. Well, that privy cannot be recertified based on its conditions. So we have to lift the privy structure, we have to lift the vault, we have to put something else in its place. Whether we put additional ones in place in each of those areas or we put fewer in place, that remains to be seen, but we still have to put some kind of restroom structures in place to be able to serve those camping areas. That's more funding, more infrastructure further down the road. We also would need to go for permitting and make sure that we've got both management practices in place. We already have a rule in place in our park rules that says no camping in any of our park properties without permission of the director. We do offer camping at Power Island. Your permit that you've received when you register is your permission from the director to do so. So by that, we do not allow camping on any of our other properties. And this property would fit into that same process. So next steps, implementation plans would be first. All right, so we've got a basic idea of where we want to go here with this. You know, these are the amenities that we want to use. These are the phases. After the phasing, if you were to go to page 19, you'll see phasing strategy, and we also have some work plan items. Now that needs to be fleshed out a little bit more, and that's where that actual on-the-ground project planning comes in. But we've just listed a few things just to give everybody an idea of what is some of that infrastructure that we would need to put in place in each of those phases. We need to detail that out, dates, you know, and all the timelines and who's responsible and all that sort of stuff. So we would add that in. That's the implementation plan piece of it. Part of that implementation plan also involves us working with East Bay Township to make sure that our site plan is consistent with what they're expecting. And we've had conversations with them already. The things that we are talking about are consistent with the site planning process. So we're pleased at that, and we'll continue to work with them to make sure we can put together an application and a set of program use, or sorry, amenities and uses for those amenities that is consistent with that. Put the park rules in place, management practices in place, and then be able to do the rollout. So, what questions can I answer for you? Yes.
John, I know it's certainly phase 4 and 5, but thinking about that rifle range there, I recently saw mentioned somewhere else, not a county piece, but somewhere else, that we were perhaps cleaning up that range. That's not in the proposed budget at this time, certainly, nor is it proposed what we would do with that. Could you speak as to why that might be?
Sure. So if we keep the range open, all right, so we would continue to use that range. The phase 1 and phase 2 environmental assessment, of course, both those assessments are today. The phase 1 identifies what are the potential hazards on property. So they go back to 1945, they look at how the property was used, and they identify where could there be potential hazards on the property. They interview folks to learn more about that. So they interviewed Cliff Wagner, for example, who was the longtime caretaker, and a number of other folks that had involvement with the property. Found out where all those things were. And then the phase 2 is, we know where the potential things are. Let's go and test those. So surprise, they tested, and there's actually lead on the range. Go figure. So what they've also tested is they tested groundwater and have recommended that that we continue to test the groundwater. We've not had any contamination for that. So with that in mind, there really isn't a need to clean that range up. We'll continue to test in the area to make sure that there's no leaching of lead into the system.
And there are stipulations from what I remember of previous conversations regarding that if we were to never use that rifle range again, we would then actually need to exhaust the resources on permanently closing and cleaning that up. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Right.
So that's one of the reasons for continuing to use the range. I mean, not only is it a great amenity to be able to teach that firearm safety and, like I said, competitive archery in the archery range and other sorts of things like that, but to be able to use that appropriately.
Perfect. Also then, just looking at it here, we've all seen the business plan many times, and I appreciate you bringing it here again this evening.
Sure.
None of what's proposed seems to go beyond the scope of the historic usage of that property for zoning purposes and for amenity purposes. Is that correct?
Correct. There are pre-existing uses, I want to say pre-existing conditions, but pre-existing uses of all of these things that we're looking to do on the property.
Perfect. That's all I have. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Others?
John, I just wanted to note that keeping and using the shotgun range and the rifle range, we will not be adding more lead to it because all that shot has changed in that time. We will not be adding more. We will just be leaving what's where it is.
Yeah. Yep. And that's what's the... Yeah, copper. Thank you. I was like, what is the metal?
Sorry. Yep.
Yeah. So Jeffrey with North Sky Raptor Sanctuary. So that's one of the things that they continue to educate people about is switching over to copper to lessen the impact on wildlife.
I just wanted to make sure that people understood that we aren't going to continue to add. it's contained now and that's going to stay.
Yep.
Any other questions? John, are you looking for a motion here to move this on?
If you are so interested.
I'll make a motion that we move this on to the next level.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion by Joe, second by Jamie. I think the next level, John, is it's going to the BOC, correct?
That is correct.
So Brian, we can use your help on that?
I'll be there.
Okay.
Would you like
All
me
in
to
favor?
clarify the motion a little better? Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you.
All right.
Passes unanimously.
Thank you to the Strategic Planning Committee for all your work and helping make sure that this happens, and thanks to the commission, and thanks to the public for all the support and the guidance.
Thank you, John.
All right. With that, John, the T-Bays, USASA field contract.
Yes, so T-Bays, as we know that they host 2 tournaments a year currently. Those are youth tournaments. What they're looking to do is they're looking to add a 3rd tournament, and this would be an adult tournament they'd be looking to bring in. And I have the dates here, but I need to pull that up. I want to say 9th through the 13th of July, but give me one moment. Does that sound right? Yeah. My screen went blank while I was up there. All right. Yes, they're looking to do an adult tournament July 9th through the 13th. All be contained on property, and just as any other tournament would have been held. The one difference with this particular tournament is, as it is an adult tournament, they would be having alcohol at the event.
And that's his, looks like the form of just a singular beer tent with lighter alcoholic beverages.
Yeah. Yeah, nobody's going to,
Do shots.
yeah, nobody's going to a soccer tournament, a competitive soccer tournament, with the intention of just getting hammered drunk.
Really fun.
I would hope so.
But
Are
having
you
a
talking about
beer,
the spectators or the participants?
you got a point.
You got a point. Comments, questions about the contract? Caleb?
I'll note this is approximately 120 adult teams coming, so it is significantly less in
Yes.
scope than the
Then the
youth tournaments that we already see here, you know, is seemingly well supported as well by TC Tourism, and that it brings these people here to this region. It's quite a well-known group. This is not T-Bays hosted necessarily, other than the fact that they are leasing out their space at that time. It is, I'll note, by the United States Adult Soccer Association, which is based out of Illinois, but has members nationwide. Happy to answer any questions as well.
I was just gonna say, it looks like it's already been signed, so do we just need to like approve?
So we are the last signers
we are a
on something like
signee
this.
on
Yeah,
it.
so it would have to be approved by us.
I see, okay.
John, I'll get to you, Andy, sorry. My one question was about any, there's nothing about time or camping on that.
Yeah.
Did we get a response
Yeah,
back?
so I talked to Roy Montney, and he confirmed that there will be no camping on property.
As is per our park rules currently as
Yes.
well.
Yeah, the one thing they referred to that, we didn't find it in the park rules, or did you?
It's in the regular park rules. Yeah.
In the regular park rules, okay. Great.
I think it does say somewhere like 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. on those
Yeah.
days, so
I'd have to pull it up to see the exact times.
I read that somewhere.
Any
right.
other question?
Andy?
Just a question. This looks like a standard form. We've used it before.
We have not. This is,
This is their tendered?
This is
Has
their tendered.
Council reviewed it?
council has not reviewed this. So, it's a good question.
Good question. Great.
So should the motion be contingent on approval as to
That's fair.
form?
Yep, that's fair.
I think so. Would you like to make the motion and?
I'm sorry, I thought someone made one, that's why we're discussing it. I missed that. Okay. Well, I would, yeah,
Is there a
I would move
I didn't think there was a motion.
to approve the contract as tendered, subject to review and approval as to form by council.
Motion by Andy,
I'll second that.
Jalen will second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. With that,
Is that Cherry Fest?
Cherry Fest is the week before.
we're down to second public comment. Any takers?
Cleared out.
Aaron?
Aaron? No? Well, with that, I'm
I
going
should,
to-
you know, I thanked the committee and I thanked everybody else, but I need to make sure that I truly thank the Grand Traverse Regional Land Conservancy for all their support, not only in helping us obtain the property, but helping guide us on the property as well. So thank you.
Notices or any commissioner comments? Go ahead, Jalen.
Oh, mine's rather lengthy. I wasn't sure if somebody else had their hand up too. Well, I was the M-Parks attendee for us this year, so I do have some summaries of some of the interesting
Awesome.
opportunities of which I attended, as I know you encouraged us to bring back
I
such.
did.
I attended several courses sponsored by the DNR regarding trail creation and maintenance there, as certainly when we're moving forward with our current phase 1 of Camp Graylick there, we will be upgrading and modifying our parks and our trails there. So some fun facts that I walked away as well with that was an 89% increase in trail use in the past decade. 50% of that has been since 2020. So that's something certainly to keep in mind is that those trails that are existing out there currently are probably not necessarily in line with what the expectations of use might actually end up being. There's also been a 12% increase in trail running out there, so that's particularly interesting as well. 80% of park visitors, the DNR estimates, use trails, as well as 38% bring a dog with them. So that's always something
That's always the
that can
challenge,
happen.
isn't it?
It can be, yes. Of course, also then they noted some improvements that we can make is trail difficulty marking. So having an easy trail versus very difficult trails, for example. Sometimes some areas use the classic ski green to black diamond ratings. Others just spell it out. Something we can certainly consider when we're building out more trails out in that area. Also, digital maps for trails is becoming more and more popular as well. That tends to be how the younger demographics really want to access what's going on at your parks. They want to know all about the park before they actually go and even
Trail
attend it there.
length also in
Yeah. Exactly.
not just difficulty, but trail length.
Yeah.
Is this a 5 mile or a 1 mile?
Yeah. Also, then they encouraged memos of understanding with partners, as they can typically be the ones who actually take care of that maintenance on our behalf. They have resources that might be a little bit more knowledgeable and more readily available than county ones. So certainly when we look at the bike paths that we're considering building out at Graylick there, we might want to take part in perhaps MOUs with the Northern Michigan Mountain Bike Association, which I know is something that we've kind of heard maybe a little bit about already there. Also, as part of that was a reminder that friends groups are an option as well to help you maintain parks, something we've tossed around previously in strategic planning, I know as well. With that too, was another part, the Dragon, which is a trail down in Newbury. It's a 45-mile long trail.
Newaygo.
Sorry, Newaygo. Newbury is much further north. Newaygo County. It's been actually, last year was rated as the best new backcountry trail in the United States of America, so kudos to them. 45-mile trail built for only $3 million, I will add. So that's especially interesting there. And they noted the average mountain bike trail user is male, 35 to 54 years old, makes over $100,000 annually, and spends on average 10 hours a week outdoor. Their trail is bringing in $4 million in annual impact to their region as well, and has been attended by people from all 50 states. Yeah. What we want to keep in mind there is they have a bi-directional trail, very wide, very complex in some areas, but it's also known as a flow trail, where really you hop on your bike and you simply move the bike up and down. It's not a lot of aggressive pumping, it's not a lot of aggressive biking, you're really going with the flow, so to speak. So really looking at how they constructed parts of that trail when we perhaps build out a little bit more at Camp Graylick, I think will be useful as well. Also then, I did attend one where it was marking the 1-year anniversary of lessons learned from a splash pad shooting down at Oakland County. You might remember that on the news last year. Parks are supposed to be a safe, welcoming space for all, and we certainly always encourage that. However, they did, address some of the communication challenges they experienced immediately afterwards. Also, interestingly, was it's highly likely that if you have such an attack and it makes the news, your IT systems will be suddenly compromised by bad actors almost 100% of the time. So your IT systems will be offline in that. So making sure you have communications already built out. You've met with your first responders, you've met with emergency managers, that you've tabletopped what could possibly happen, as well as had actual walkthroughs and perhaps scenarios built out with your first responders in all of your parks regarding that was a major takeaway there. And I think we'll probably see a little bit more of preparation perhaps this year. I've been encouraging as well with our partners. T-Base discussed that with them recently too, of preparing for the worst at our parks. This was a small, unstaffed splash pad. You wouldn't ever think something like that would happen there, but it did. And then the final event, too, I also attended was in support of our friends at the Conservation District. They had about 40 attendees from MParks attend their 100% outdoor programming session there. It was great to see them talking about much of the wonderful things that they do there. A lot of people were walking away with some really great ideas for themselves on how to bring really solid programming to the communities. It was nice to see them highlighted really to the MParks attendees as a great opportunity too. Yeah, that is the long but short summary of those sessions that I attended. I know, Rod, you and I attended a dinner as well with staff with Spicer Group, just recognizing the MParks overall. Lots of other individuals for MParks were there. Jamie, I know I saw you as well. And Grace, I know you mentioned you also attended parts of MParks too.
Any comments, Jamie or Grace?
I really enjoyed being able to go. It was pretty interesting. My session was more on having to do with like employee recognition and morale, and talking to them more on the ability of various ideas in the worlds of carrots, recognition ideas and things of that to keep your staff more happy and motivated and focused on the goals and missions. And then did a little tour around and at the vendor show, and talked with some folks, and a lot of very interesting things that they got going out there. Some nice technology, some definitely new things as it comes to or as it relates to just like park playground type stuff, all those things, and different activities, and all sorts of different kinds of rubberized wood chips that you could ask for.
Grace?
Yeah, the most interesting session that I went to, and John and I have talked about this, was a marketing session about how you communicate opportunities to your user base rather than just posting like a static flyer or a web page link. How can you get stories from users in front of other people, which is much more compelling in terms of like motivation to go do something. So like if you have a volunteer opportunity, showing other volunteers talk about their experience, they said was like light years more engaging and yielded much better results than posting like a volunteer opportunity flyer. So there's a lot of topics like that, and a lot of like social media, new technology kind of stuff. So it was really interesting, and I think I sent some notes to John and staff of like, there are things that we could definitely think about doing a little differently. So hopefully it's helpful.
I spent a little bit of time in the evening at the trade show, vendor show. I know we looked at some wonderful resin furniture, picnic tables, benches, that type of stuff. And they're in the state of Michigan, number one, down by Lansing, number two, 20-year warranty on some of this stuff, and prices that were reasonable.
Very reasonable.
We also talked with some of the different trail building folks, pump track building folks, because some of that's coming into our group through Norte, and not just from us. We also have somewhat of a pump track already built out at the Broomhead or the area. So, I mean, it was really kind of neat to see that right here in town and not have to spend our money to go downstate. But I think it was quite worthwhile. Thank you guys for going. That's what we wanted to do. And with that, anybody else? Any comments?
I welcome staff's comments on MParks as well, and anything they saw at the trade show that might be of value.
I was going to say, brand new to parks.
Yeah.
We gave you a
Rec
few
and trade
things.
show.
I kind of intentionally went to sessions that were outside of my comfort zone since I'm starting from scratch. So I went to a couple of recreation sessions so I can understand how our partners function and how I can be a better partner to them. That was really helpful. I went to a really cool session on scavenger hunts in parks, and that's something that I hope to bring to all of our parks this summer. Kind of an aggressive timeline, but it looks super fun, so I'd like to go all in on that. Learned a lot about communications and marketing. I'd love to catch up with you on storytelling. That's something that I want to move forward for us this year. And when we talk about volunteerism opportunities, one thing that I heard a lot and would like to focus on is getting younger demographics. So there's a lot of high schoolers that need volunteer hours that can be social media ambassadors for us and do the things that maybe Johns and my generation don't quite know how to work on Insta and whatever other platforms, but know how to do reels and things that really are more engaging for people who are just scrolling through. I came back with a lot of notes and ideas, and now I'm trying to sift through and say, okay, what can we do?
I attended a few sessions on, one on purposeful PR, which really went through the 7 principles of public relations. And I found that interesting. What I liked about it was many things, but one of those was a confirmation that we're on the right track. There's certainly things that we can do different and things that we can do better, but we are on the right track from that standpoint. Also went with a strategic communication, and that was interesting as well. The value of trails to park systems, and that was kind of an offshoot from the one that you went to. So this was the setup for the session that, actually no, you went to this session, sorry, this is the one we were both in. I went to a follow-up session after that, which then focused on trail building and the actual mechanics of trail building and how hiking trails are built different from mountain bike trails, are built different from multi-purpose trails, and what standards they use for that. So we focused on AASHTO standards and U.S. Forest Service standards. Also had a really interesting session on the Health Endowment Fund. And so the Health Endowment Fund is basically looking at ways to be able to use parks to increase the health and wellness of people. And so, as I mentioned earlier, parks can help support the social, emotional, cognitive, and physical development needs of people. So they actually have a pretty good amount of money available in grant form to be able to provide for development work. So not bricks and mortar, but one of the hardest things about applying for grants is that if you just have a fuzzy concept, then nobody's going to bite on that grant. But you need to have a firm conceptual plan, and or even better, if you end up with a fully engineered project and you're ready to put a shovel in the ground as soon as they give you the money, you're much more likely to get funded. So they actually do that. They'll help provide funding for the conceptual plans, help provide funding for the engineering work. So when you do go for grants, you'll be ready to do that. So we will definitely be working with the Michigan Health Fund. There's lots of ways we can get involved there. And another one was small department, big strategy. And that one was interesting. I was expecting it to be more of a, how do you really support a small staff and really deliver a lot with that staff? But what it turned out to be was more of how do you create a plan? So much like our 5-year plan, and then how do you blend that 5-year conceptual, and what do you want to do, with the actual boots on the ground strategic part of it? And that's another one that gave me a lot of confirmations that we're on the right track, that our 5-year plan has all those aspects of it. It was developed, I'll call it sufficiently vague, to allow us to have flexibility and be able to build that plan and be able to add other things to that plan without having to go through an onerous process of modifying that plan with the state. So good sessions all around. I always enjoy not only the sessions, but enjoy the connection that you make to all the other professionals around the state. And that's always super valuable. One of the things that we're involved in is Knuckles North. So there are 5 regional groups around the state. Might be more than that, but Knuckles North is essentially everything from the Knuckles North for both peninsulas. And so it's all the recreation professionals in that area. So it's the largest geographic area of the state, but unfortunately the fewest number of professionals, simply because the further north you go, the smaller the communities get, and the fewer park departments that there are. So you find somebody that, in a small town that might be the person who is running public works and their For all I know, they might be running Public Works, they might be the mayor, they might be the finance director, it might be a team of one doing everything in that small town. So we've been working with M-Parks and talked a little bit at the conference here about how to grow that Knuckles North connection. And so Knuckles North is actually Knuckles North and M-Parks are putting together a UP Roots Summit. So we'll be participating in April to help grow the participation from here up. Good time. Thank you.
With that, we are adjourned. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Awesome. I think we had a completely full board tonight.
Yeah.
We did.
Last time that-
Crazy.